Hi, I'm Shelly and welcome to the workshop on high work demands as well as workplace hazards. We'll start with workplace hazards. Obviously, if there's any physical hazards within your work setting, the number one priority is for the leadership team or the relevant person is to manage that hazard immediately. The ones that might not be so obvious are not being able to take breaks when needed or poor physical work environment. And so those ones are listed here. And these are the ones that we encourage staff to speak up about, and that is your job as a leader. Now we'll deal with the big ticket item, which is basically workload. And this is probably the area that your staff have identified as a major factor. And this can be really challenging to deal with, particularly with the expectations of your organisation. It is so easy just to not tackle workload at all, and that's what many organisations do, but you end up with staff absences and wellbeing problems as a result. You're not that organisation because you're here learning how to tackle it, and this is how you do it. So basically, your leadership team is going to be deciding who, as leaders, are going to be going out and asking staff specific examples of workload, where the causes are of that, and then what solutions they particularly see moving forward that can actually resolve the problem in the first place. You'll also need to be asking them, is there a particular time of year? Are there particular deadlines that need to be met? Is this what's causing pressure at certain times of year? Ask for specific examples, ask what the actual problems are there, and then ask for any solutions that they see moving forward. So your leadership team is now going to be pausing the video to decide who in your leadership team, and it might be a leader of every part of your organisation, will be going out to ask these questions. When they're going to be doing it, what the deadline is by when they're going to be finalising getting the answers to all these questions, how you're going to be ensuring that no staff member gets missed, that every single voice gets heard, because sometimes all the staff need to do is feel heard, and then they feel more connected, and then there's more trust, and then their well-being improves. So it's really important that every single staff member gets to. So pause the video to decide all of these points. Now, by the exact same deadline, you're now going to be assigning 1 or 2 staff members that are going to be looking at your staff absence data, when they're away, and particularly what deadlines are due or work demands are due at those points in time, so that when you collate all the information together, you also have your staff absence data as well. Now it's time to pause this video so that your leadership team can answer all of these points. By now, you should have a plan that answers all these points to make sure who is going to be asking what staff, ensuring how no one gets missed no matter what, ensuring how the information is going to be collated, where it will be collated and in what format, who's going to be analysing staff absence data and matching it to the timelines in your organisation, when all of this is going to be collated by, and what your next meeting is going to be where you'll be looking at the data together. If you haven't quite decided all of these points, then make sure that after you stop this video that you actually make sure all of these points are covered, because you listening to your staff is so important, and listening builds trust, and then trust builds well-being. So make sure that these points are definitely adhered to. Now it's time for your minute taker to copy the URL of this particular video and the timestamp below, because you will be returning to this exact point once you've actually collated all your data, and in your next leadership meeting you'll have all that information in your agenda ready for when you're ready to review this data. Welcome back to your leadership team. By now you should have all the information that you need in terms of staff workload and stresses, and also the data on staff absences and the timelines of things that are due in your organisation around those times. Now, the first thing you're going to do is look at the staff absence data and the work demands and the timelines of the things that are due at the times that staff ultimately are having off. There's a pretty good chance that staff wellbeing is being negatively impacted around these times, so it's worth stopping the video now and having a look at that data and seeing if you can bring in any of the information that staff have identified about work demands around those times. Now, we're not at solution point yet, but make sure that you have at least recorded the work demands that seem to be around the same time that the staff are absent. and make sure that that is listed as the 1 or 2 priority areas in terms of the timelines of work. Now we're going to be moving on to the other area of looking at all of the information that staff gave in terms of work demands and workload. You're now going to have a look at all that data and come up with your top 5 to 8 workload problems that staff have identified. Pause this video to do that now. Make sure that those top 5 to 8 stressors are actually written down and recorded somewhere, perhaps in your meeting minutes now, because in a moment we're moving on to the top 1 or 2, but we need a record of the rest. Now, looking at your list of the top 5 to 8 stressors, you're now going to put brackets around the ones that you feel, given deadlines that you have, the workload that you have, and the issues that the staff have presented and how long that would take to handle, place brackets around the ones that you just don't feel are viable for you to tackle at the moment. Pause the video to do that now. Now together in your leadership team, you are going to decide the top 1 or the top 2 items that you will be tackling first. Really important that you do tackle something that's a high priority for staff, so that staff understand that you actually are listening to them and that you are going to be addressing their concerns. But we're not at solution point yet. So pause the video to decide which ones you're going to be tackling first. Now, looking at the information that you did gather from staff and all the actual causes, in a circle you're going to be listing every individual cause that caused the particular 1 or 2 top concerns that you're going to be looking at. It can be handy to put this on a whiteboard, writing them in a circle, 1 cause each, in a circle, and here's an example of what I'm talking about. Now, using the example, I'm going to explain what to do. So, you compare one of the causes against one of the other causes, and if they are connected, you draw a line. And you're going to ask yourself, which one causes the other? The arrow is going to go from the cause to the effect, just like in the example. Now, once you've done this, you compare the exact same cause to all the other causes that are written down. Once you've done this, some of them will have lines, some of them won't be joined at all because they're not connected at all. Then once you've done this and you've got the arrows going from the cause to the effect, occasionally they affect each other and there'll be no arrow at all, it'll just be a line. Then you go to the second cause and you compare that cause to all the other ones moving around the board. So the line goes from the cause to the effect. Now trust me, this looks like a spider web and an absolute disaster, but believe me, there is a big point to doing this. So you're now going to pause this video until you have compared every single cause to every single other cause of that particular workload problem. By now, you should have something that looks roughly like this. So yeah, it looks like a gigantic mess, but it's not. So, next to each one of the headings of all your causes, you're going to be putting how many have the out arrows and how many have in arrows. So the out goes first, the in goes second, as the example demonstrates. As you can see in this particular example, the change in leaders has been the biggest cause of the problem, and the change in their expectations, and staff being too busy to help. So you know at the core what you're going to be doing is going to be focusing on just those 2 areas to tackle the actual concern that staff are having. You're going to pause the video and do that now. And now all you need to record is the top 2 causes that have the most out arrows and the least in arrows, because these are your top 2 problems, and without tackling these you're not going to tackle the problem at all. So record the top 2 and only the top 2 causes with the most out arrows and the least in arrows. This is where you're going to be focusing your energy. Now look at the solutions that staff offered, and which ones of these actually tackle the causes that you just uncovered. Only look at the solutions that tackle the causes that you just identify are the main problems. And the leaders that investigated with staff and they made these suggestions, you're going to be talking about each solution so that everyone in the room fully understands what that solution would involve. You're going to pause the video now, look at those solutions, list them down, and make sure that everyone in the room understands each option for solutions. Now, the mistake that so many leadership teams use now is they use all the solutions. My goodness, do not do that, because you just create a bigger mess and more workplace pressure for staff. So you are now going to look at those solutions and decide which one or two you're going to be using that will actually resolve the problem, reduce workplace pressure and demands, that is going to be the most cost effective and the most time effective for everyone. Pause the video to decide that top one or two solution now. Sometimes you have a few solutions and you just don't know which ones to choose as a leadership team, and that's okay, because all you do is you put it to staff yourselves. And then all you have to decide is when you're going to put it to staff, who's going to put it to staff and explain each of the scenarios and the causes as to what you're trying to fix, and then how you're going to get their responses. So if that's you, pause the video now and make those decisions. Well done, you actually have a solution by now. So if you've got one, fantastic. All you need to do now is figure out who's going to affect the change, when are they going to do it, and how are they going to let staff know in a timely manner so it actually doesn't cause more stress to staff, and how are they going to go about doing that. Pause the video to decide those now. All you need to decide now is, after that change comes into effect, who's going to be responsible for asking staff how well that change is being received, and any suggestions or recommendations they may have on tweaking it. So you can pause the video now to do that if you like, but you also need to make a decision about when you're going to be watching the second version of the staff workload workshop, because ultimately you're going to be tackling more than one area that the staff are needing support with. All you need to do now is copy the URL for the video that's called this one, and then paste it into your agenda item for when you are ready to tackle the next one of the workload stressor items that staff have identified. And that's the end of this workshop. Well done to you.